right, so we are back. We're talking about getting more out of coaching. This is Steve and Rob. We are talking about 6 points today. We got what is coaching, why be coached, what is your role and how you maintain that role, removing your ego, story versus fact, and finally secret sauce action, what you can do to make sure you're doing the best you can to get the most out of your coaching sessions. Let's go ahead and get started. We got number one. What is coaching? Rob, you're going to start us off with what is coaching?
Okay. So, I think the first thing that we have to be really clear about is that it's not therapy, it's not counseling. Coaching is not medical advice. The other thing that I think the big misconception that I had about coaching before I got started with it was that it was like a bunch of high-fiving and people feeling really good about life and like being like someone to motivate you and encourage you.
Yeah, right. It's almost like
and offer you advice.
It can seem like you're going to go back to like first grade and it's like, yay, you colored in the box, congratulations. And it's a lot of just cheap affirmations about yourself and stuff that's not necessarily genuine.
Right. Yeah. And so like I definitely was like, yep, never hiring a coach ever. And then I ended up becoming a coach. So now I know a little bit more about what goes on in that. But to me, I think coaching is like, if I can take an example out of my own book, it's like, okay,
sure.
Well, I can't get myself to stop playing video games, and it's eating up a lot of my time. And I set limits and boundaries on myself. You know, I'll say like an hour a day at most. But then it's 4 a.m. and here I am playing Diablo 2, or you know whatever it is the kids are playing nowadays. Fortnite.
Yeah.
So what then can I do? Right? Well, if I talk to a friend, they're just going to give me advice, and they're going to be like, well, you know, just stop playing video games. And stop you playing video games. Doesn't work, right? I already know that. I have that information. If I could, I would have implemented it already, and I wouldn't be playing. So, coaching it's diving into the why behind the action. It's understanding what's there, and then removing that block so that I can begin to change. And that goes for stuff like asking for a raise, that goes for becoming more confident, that goes for being more willing to go out on dates and explore the bars and clubs, as opposed to just like, you know, staying in on Friday night. Whatever it is that people are stopped on. And I've seen people that are making like close to 7 figures a year, people that are making 7 or 8 figures a year come to me for coaching as well. We're all stopped by something. It doesn't matter how smart we are. I've had medical doctors that come to me. At first I wasn't sure why, but it's like, nope, I've been dealing with the same stuff and we don't know how to break through. And that's why people come to get it.
Yeah, and it at the very least, it helps to get another person's perspective, even if it's not necessarily advice giving, just to get your ideas out there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like when a friend comes to you and they're like having a fight with their significant other, it's like so easy to see what's going on, right? Like, and meanwhile they're like suffering, but like you know exactly what's happening in the background and how to solve it.
Yeah.
Like in that moment, they're too close to the action to see it for themselves.
Can't see the forest through the trees.
Even just having an impartial. What's that? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Having that impartial observer, even if they aren't trained, is still a really useful thing. But then having someone who has the skills that are designed to things that we traditionally would resist or not see for ourselves, that's where the breakthroughs happen.
Right. Exactly. And I've learned from a little bit of being coached myself, it's the coach is not supposed to offer advice. Like their goal is not to tell you the solution, but to help you try to reach your own solution.
Exactly.
It's almost like Inception.
Yeah. yeah, how do I break this
But
idea down to its most basic idea and convince you that you've come up with it? A
yeah,
little bit, yeah.
yeah. And
Um,
it could be like at
and
least a little bit geared from the coach's perspective and says, well, I think this is a good idea, so they'll try to help you get to that point that they're thinking. But if they can convince you to convince yourself, then obviously then you found direction in something that might work. That's better than just your friend telling you what to do, because now it's kind of your choice and you're taking control of your own life.
yeah, like to me, and I'm really happy that you brought up that point. Like to me, it shows up like if I just happen to stumble into a restaurant that I had no idea existed, I try the food and it's amazing. That's a
Mhm.
life-changing experience for me. That's something
Right.
I hang on to forever. But if I just find it on Yelp, like there's a lot, something is lost in that, and
Yeah, you lose
it's
the
similar
magic,
with
right?
coaching, right?
Or if your
If
friends are like,
someone
"Oh,
just
you have to try this one
gives me,
restaurant," and everyone's been there, but it's new for you, and then you're like, "Oh yeah, it is true. I'm just like the masses now." Then you kind of it loses the splendor.
yeah, sort of similar with coaching too. If someone just hands me the information or the advice, I'm not gonna do anything with that. I have the information. We all know how to lose weight, right? We just run more and eat less. But like,
Easy done.
right? But it's the integration with that. It's the no. It's it goes beyond knowing into like having an understanding of like, oh, like what does it feel like to run? What does it feel like to be healthy? And if I can get to that breakthrough through answering questions, like the very Socratic way, it's much easier to have that integrated experience versus just having the knowledge and not being able to do anything with
Yeah, right.
it. Okay. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else to add there,
Yeah.
but I feel like that covers off on it. You're right.
Well,
There's usually no advice giving when it comes to like a skilled coach.
yeah, and just from another perspective, my brother is a coach. He works in real estate, and he coaches other coaches how to coach and everything. He has a lot of coaching experience. He's been doing it for years. And when he was telling me he was a coach, I was like, so you go around, just like you said before, like you go around and you teach, right? He's like, it's not quite teaching. It's a little different. He was trying to tell me the nuances between teaching and coaching. And you're the motivator. You're this. You have so many different roles as a coach. And he was telling me what he does, and the more he explained it, the more I was like, oh, okay, this is a real thing. This is something that is necessary for people, and it helps keep people keep motivated and staying on their case about making sure they're doing what's best for them to achieve the goals that they want to achieve, and to be honest, not only with themselves but with the world around them, so they can work in the real world instead of in their head to make their goals come true.
Yeah, I think you touch on another really important point in all of that, in that like the coach's goal isn't to like create their highest vision of you.
No.
It's to understand what you're after and pursue it without like
And help you figure out
without
what you're after.
impose. Right, exactly. Like get you super clear on what you're up to in life, hold you accountable to that, and also make sure they're not projecting whatever their value system is onto you. Like
Yeah,
it's
they gotta be
purely about
super
what you're up to.
unbiased.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we could move on to the next one of why be coached.
Yeah, I feel like we did a good job of covering off on some of that. But
Sure.
let me see if I can think of some examples.
But well, I like what you were saying about people that are even successful in life. You could argue like most, like 9 out of 10 people or 99 out of 100 people would say that they are succeeding in life. They have 7 or 8 figures. That's fine. Or 6 or 7 figures. That's fine. They are a medical professional. They're working in the top of their field. They are absolutely fine. Why would they need to be coached? And yet they still do. So even if you take someone great, like hell, even a Steve Jobs, that would need to be coached, those exist. Those absolutely exist. And to say that if they need coaching, why wouldn't anyone else need coaching? Why wouldn't the lame man need coaching? And it
Right.
seems like in
Yeah.
today's day and age, the fact that we want to help each other to become better people in a society and just improve ourselves, and what we've been talking about in the last few weeks, or a couple of weeks, we want to share why anyone and everyone can benefit from a coaching session.
Yeah, it's a really nice space to be in. And I will add too that like it's one of many different ways to getting to the next level.
Exactly.
Like I think I think that it's like an answer but not the answer. Like get there through meditation. You can get there through sheer force of will if you're really pig-headed enough. But it's certainly cut down the amount of time investment necessary for more self-awareness, breaking through personal barriers, and in my case, I found that I'm just a lot happier now that I have like an entire community of coaches that I can rely on. Usually, I don't have to spend too much time being pissed off after a fight with my significant other. Usually, I'm not stalled out for too long, get stuck on my business and discouraged. Within a day, like I'm back on my feet and I'm back at peak performance.
Yeah. Yeah, something that happened to me recently that I kind of wanted to share with you, but I didn't want to share with you until this session was my company had us go through a training session, and it was on being coached and how to coach others, which is why I kind of brought this up as a topic. And during the seminar, we were taking turns and coaching each other, and we learned this, that, and the other thing. But one of the things that really struck out to me was the instructor, the coach that was teaching us, asked for a volunteer to show how to coach one-on-one, and she was met with a bunch of blank stares, right? No one wanted to volunteer, and then she said, well, you know, you'll get more out of this if you volunteer. You'll get more out of this course than anyone else will. So like a giddy goat, I volunteered. I was like, yeah, let's do this. And so she did, and she talked to me about my goals and everything, and how the summer I had all these goals to be really productive and all this other stuff. And she said, well, why do you want to do that? And she asked me questions. She didn't tell me advice so much as she asked me questions. Why do you want to do that? What is your goal? What is your clear goal? And like, what if you were to say that in 3 words, what would you say is your goal, or something like that? Or really, really simplify things down. And then she had me make a commitment at the end, and it was really powerful to see her do that. And I felt very vulnerable and everything, but at the end of it, I felt like kind of a breakthrough. And I was in front of all my coworkers on the foreign side, and they saw a little bit more of me than I felt comfortable, but at the same time, it was very emotionally uplifting, I guess, in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a similar experience with that of like it gets very uncomfortable about halfway through.
Yeah,
Like right before the breakthrough is where it sucks really bad and like I don't want to be in that conversation. And
right.
then it seems to flip. Like
Yeah,
the minute that you get that insight or that motivation, it's like, oh shit, like I didn't know I could feel like this. And the only thing that happened was a conversation.
right. Yeah,
But
that's the
I
weird thing.
mean,
All it took was
not just a
talking.
conversation. Yeah. Yeah.
And for this session, it was really nice because my company was paying for the whole thing. Like, I didn't have to, I just had to be there. And I was getting technically paid to be there. So
Hmm.
I had very little invested to lose in this. And it was just, other than to save face, I guess, is the only thing I lost. But at the same time, my coworkers were able to comment on the whole thing afterwards. And I got like new insights into tackling my demons and my goals and how to progress through what I want to do. The only bad part, I guess, now is I have a deadline. I talked about how I wanted to write a game, and she said, okay, well, how about you make a goal? And I was like, okay, I can do something by March. She's like, March, how about sooner? She's like, what about like by the end of the year? And I'm like, oh, shoot. So I have to make something by December. And I'm working on that slowly, so hopefully it'll work out.
I like how you brought up the vulnerability bit. I think
Yeah.
that part kind of gets skipped over. I mean, it's entirely possible to be coached and still like be clammed up tight and like look good and be cool the entire way through, but like being willing to be seen in your like struggle and pain, I find that clients who are willing to let go of that and to step into just like, hey, this is true for me and it looks bad,
Yeah.
they get the most out of their sessions. So I'm really happy that you had that experience and that you were willing to let go of the reins of it.
Yeah. And it was nice because my coworkers, like, I have to be all tough in front of them, right? Because I'm me. And to see that they were there to catch me, it kind of brought us all closer together anyway on an emotional level. Where I was like, oh wow, this is a safe space, and everyone was completely respectable, and that was awesome. I felt completely at ease there when, after being a little vulnerable, it was met with nothing but positive feedback. And a lot of them said, oh wow, you're really hard on yourself when you fail, huh? And I was like, well, yeah. And they said, when I was on vacation, it was vacation time. Like, the fact that you were trying to do anything is remarkable. Like, I was, for example, I was beating myself up a little bit for watching TV all day during the summer holiday, when my schedule that I wanted to do said to be more productive and what were some of the things? Practice my Chinese, exercise more, all that stuff, and program more. And so when I said, oh, I felt guilty because I spent a day just playing video games or just watching TV or something like that, they said it was break time. That's all I did. So you shouldn't be so hard on yourself. So, but then they were, one of them even commented, she's like, oh, well, now I'm giving you advice, and as a coach, I shouldn't do that. So I should just listen to what you have to say, not tell you what I would do. So for a training session, it worked really well all around. But for me being coached, I was happy to have that safe space to talk and to connect better with my team.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that like as a result of getting your coaching in front of your team, getting your training, it feels like it's safer to share with your coworkers, and some of them are taking on like little bits and pieces of coaching where they're no longer like giving advice or noticing when they feel the desire.
Right. Yeah, and that was part of the training anyway, was to listen to we're doing this for the kids especially, but also it was to work with us later on. But for life, when you're listening to someone talk about their problems, don't always just jump in for advice giving. Just listen. Really listen.
Yeah, I can't think of a single instance of when I was sharing what was going on in my life and if it was coming from a really painful place where I wanted someone to give me advice. Like,
right.
I can count on one hand the number of times that I've wanted advice from someone.
Right. Yeah, because as human beings, if we need advice, we usually listen to ourselves, or we ask Google. But yeah, once Google's out of the equation, then it's time for just get your problem out there. Another thing that's really interesting that you might, I don't know if you know this, but there's a programmer trick. If you have a program that doesn't work, it's called the rubber duck test. Do you know that?
I mean, the thing that comes to mind is there was like some kind of shipwreck that happened and a bunch of rubber ducks were released and they just tracked them all over the globe, but I imagine it's not related.
No, not that at all. So the rubber duck test is if you have a program that doesn't work, you get a rubber duck, and it doesn't really matter what you have. It doesn't matter if you have a rubber duck or I have a stuffed Pikachu here, so I'm gonna use that as an example. Or you can just talk to the wall. But you explain to this inanimate object what your problem is in the code. You say my code should work. It's doing this, and you walk it through the code like it's the dumbest thing on the planet. And you say it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's doing this, and then it should be doing this, but it's doing this. And if you walk through the code step by step with this inanimate object, and you're talking to it, 99% of the time you'll find your bug. And it's a proven test, and it's hilarious because it's turned into a meme. People then go out and get like ducks to hand to their employees if they're making a programming company. So when you get on board, then during onboarding you get a rubber duck. Sometimes they're like, oh, can I borrow your rubber duck? I need to explain it to a few of them because I have a really big problem. And then some people just throw them across the room because they're like, I'm mad at my program and this rubber duck, I'm going to take my anger out on him. So some places have banned rubber ducks. But I've done that before, and it's a proven thing. So to relate this back to our conversation, sometimes just talking about the problem rather than looking for advice, because there's no way a rubber duck is going to give you advice on how to solve your program. But just getting it out there, voicing it in a different way to a different audience is so beneficial.
Yeah, I love that point. Like for me, getting out of my own head is like 8/10 of the battle. In my head, nothing gets solved. Like it just is kind of an echo chamber. But the minute I talk to someone else about it, like, oh, suddenly I have a solution.
Right.
I've never heard that rubber duck thing before, but that's fucking brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really effective, apparently. And I've done it a couple times, and or not to, maybe this is not a good thing to say, but I've explained the program to friends or an ex-girlfriend or something, and then it works. Not to say that my ex is like, or my friend is like a rubber duck in intelligence, but the amount of coding that they would be able to do might be about the same as the rubber duck. I don't mean to say this in a bad way. I know it sounds terrible, but I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it in a positive way. But like someone that would not be able to give you any, that's what you need. Someone that would not physically be able to give you any advice whatsoever. That's exactly what you need. So if they say, well, I see what your problem is, but I have no idea how to attack it, what would you do? That's all you need. And that's what a rubber duck or someone that doesn't program would be able to help you with a program. I promise I still mean that in a good way.
I feel like the more you qualify that your friends and your girlfriend are not at the same intellectual level as a rubber duck, the more incriminating.
I'm gonna get so many bad reviews. Shoot. One of them's gonna be watching this and be like, hey, I know more than a rubber duck. Remember that one time I programmed one thing? Let me just backpedal. Look, it's time to move on to number 3. We're going on to your role, which is a great segue from duck into your role.
Yeah.
Let me go wash the egg off of my face here. Okay, so your role, your role. So your role in being coached, like we were talked a little bit about how the coach is not supposed to give you advice, but your role in this conversation, I want to start off with saying that when you are being coached, it is a one-way conversation. It is, you are the focus. It is not about anyone else. It is a very selfish conversation where the coached person is the subject. It has nothing to do with anyone else's viewpoints. It's all about you. And I want to point that out because not many other conversations are like that. We're conditioned for years to talk about to talk to other people and try to make it mutual, like, oh, how are you? Great, how are you as well? So you get to see both sides and you try not to exclude them. Or how was your summer? Oh, it was great. And then you're supposed to ask, how was your summer? For a coaching session, it's not, oops, I just clicked on the next one. For a coaching session, it's not about the other person. So if you have problems in your coaching session, then it's all about you. Don't worry about the other person.
Yeah, and to piggyback on top of that, just as it's like it's all about you when it comes to the conversation, it's also all about you when it comes to like creating power in the situation. So if the coaching is around your frustrations with your coworker, guess what? Your coach is going to help you figure out why this is something that you helped cause. And
yes, you are to blame. If you have a problem, you're responsible at least a little bit.
Yeah, and it's a good coach will be really careful to not take it to blame, because it isn't a blame conversation.
Exactly.
But what a lot of people don't recognize is that like responsibility in that situation is about having power. If shit is just happening to me, then I have no control over it. If I contributed to this, if I find out where I'm responsible, then I have the ability to change it up. So now all of a sudden I'm not helping. And being able to make that shift is a really powerful thing. And I know it sounds crazy just like listening to it. Like, oh, someone's gonna tell me it's my fault and I'm gonna feel better about the situation.
No, not at
Not
all.
quite.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the point that you brought up earlier. A conversation solely focused on you.
Right.
And
Yeah.
to
Go ahead.
I was I was gonna say like
Yeah.
to that end, it's really easy to kind of get lost in the details, like to be stuck in the weeds because like all the details are how we perceive life, but like how else are we gonna describe it? But it's really useful to try to take on your role as the coachee. Like your coach will really be able to do more if your answers are very concise and to the point. Like if you answer to the point where the question is answered and then don't like continue to qualify and add side story and relevant context and context again, um, a lot more can be done.
Yeah.
So it's like if I go ahead.
No, keep going.
Hmm. So like if I ask like let's say that like there is a conflict with your coworker, and the question is, okay, so what do you judge your coworker for? Um, an example of a good answer would be like I judge them for being selfish. An example of a bad answer would be I judge them for being selfish because that one time they took up way too much space in the fridge, and then like they were talking to Janine and they just wouldn't shut up. And like every time that I have a conversation with them, they just won't stop talking about their dog. Like they just I like they're obsessed with their dog. They take their dog just like to
Yes.
every single meeting, and like I don't understand why they can't just leave it at home. And like that can very easily just be like a tension deal. Making sure to stay outside of that and just answering the questions very directly means that whatever you brought to the table gets addressed that much faster.
Right. Yeah, and then also with your shorter answers, you'd be able to talk more through that session anyway, so you'd be able to use up more of your coaching time correctly. Um, so get more, especially if you're paying for a coaching session, it would really be beneficial there if you kept your answers short and to the point. And of course, if your coach needs you to elaborate and they need more out of you, then they'll ask you more questions, more provoking questions, and hopefully they won't ask you yes or no questions. So you can give them short answers, but keep your answers, of course, short if you can. Make sure they're detailed, but make sure they're short and concise. What I wanted to talk about earlier was you said that we should all take responsibility, even if it's something out of our control. I really like that because even if something is out of your control, you are somehow responsible for being in your current situation. And so through a coaching session, you can't just be like, well, the world sucks. Everything happens to me. I am a victim. You cannot have that mindset. Or at least if you do, your coach will say, hey, look, here's how you can control your own destiny. Here's how your actions can matter. Here's how you can do what you need to do to make sure what you want to do will happen. And so it is about, like you said, becoming empowered and to find the power in the situations, even if you feel like you have no power, but how you can respond to actions in those situations, and then take control of the situation.
Yeah, I
that
think
you can
it's like really easy to cruise through life and have a lot of reasons why, like, I didn't do this thing.
Sure.
There are many reasons why someone might show up late to work again and again and again. There are many reasons why I didn't work on the project that I had on the back burner for like a couple months now. There are many reasons why I didn't go to the gym and talk to that one cute girl that I've had my and a lot of coaching is just about being able to step outside of those reasons. Okay, yesterday you didn't approach that girl. Where did the breakdown happen? Well, I just ran out of time, or I was too. Okay, well, how do we address that? Maybe next time I bring a towel and some cologne and a breath mint. And the breakdowns will probably continue to happen. So the next time it happens, okay, I brought the towel, the breath mint, and the cologne. Why didn't you approach this time? Well, I was scared. Yeah. Okay, how do we address that?
Sure.
And over time, we begin to build up the system, like you were saying, of being able to generate spontaneously, like on demand whatever reality we want to create. So now I'm unstoppable. Anytime that I want to talk to a girl that I'm attracted to, I'm prepared because I have this system in place. Even if I am afraid, next time I could just go through the steps because I've had one breakdown after another and I've established a system that works.
Yeah, and once you have all those steps in place, then you will see the change happen. And it's so rewarding when you are able to do something like that, where you say, okay, here's the problem, here are my steps for the solution, here's how I'm executing the steps.
Steve, I can't hear
Oh,
anything coming from your end.
Nothing, huh? Uh-oh. Let me double check our connection here. Yeah, everything looks good here. Let me check. Check. Uh-oh. We lost
Okay,
Rob.
It kind of feels like we're going through some technical difficulties here, so bear with us for a second. We're gonna get this handled.
Rob, I can hear you. Let me tell Rob to disconnect and get back in. Maybe that will help. Maybe we have to restart a little bit. Sorry, guys. We'll be right back with you. Relog. Sorry, guys. I'll try to fill the time with a little more about what Rob was saying. So yeah, to summarize, we had to stay in your role, listen to your mentor, do what they say, but they should not be giving you advice. So they will coach you on how to give yourself advice and then make your own solutions for your own problems. And we got Rob. Oh, it looks like I think his headphones are muted. Otherwise, we might have to cut this one short today, guys. Test, check. Enjoy the music, guys. I hope we get this solved soon. His mic is off now. Rob.
Okay, cool.
There we go. Okay, we're back. Okay. Well, it was bound to happen eventually, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Cool.
so I kind of summarized
perfect.
I kind of summarized your role a little bit. We can move on to removing ego, if you're okay.
Yeah, that sounds good, man. Let's do it.
I think we're good on time anyway. Removing ego. So this,
Okay.
I'll jump it off. Just as a reminder, back to the session I talked about that I had last week. When I got into the hot seat with talking to the trainer, she asked me very vulnerable questions, like, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? Very personal things that I might not even talk to with my significant other. It was very vulnerable causing, but because of the space I was at, you just kind of have to talk because you have to give answers, right? And you're in the hot seat. And she even asked me at the beginning, she says, how much can I pry? And I said, bring it on. I'm in your hands because I trusted her enough because she's a coach and I want to see what would happen, right? So feeling vulnerable and at the mercy of other people is a little uncomfortable, but it's worth it. So if you guys are ever in that situation, I would say jump, try it, risk it. It's worth it.
Yeah, I would say that's almost even the point of going to a coach. Like,
Exactly.
Having run through like hundreds of hours of actual sessions, I think that it's really hard for us to shift what we believe. It's really hard for us to shift how we perceive our reality unless we are getting vulnerable. a lot of times, like the stuff that we get stuck on, um,
Mm.
we're stuck because there's an area that we're unwilling to explore. And talking about those areas is usually like really vulnerable. So, yeah, vulnerability is so important. But it's also kind of the coach's job to create a safe that space enough, or words. It's up to them to create a space that's like safe enough for you to be vulnerable. Because like if they're just gonna criticize you the minute that you share it about like your deepest, darkest thoughts about your girlfriend or your mom, there's no reason to take them on as a coach. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you had a really good session.
Yeah, and we had other people like we broke into little groups of people that were sharing, like we had an exercise to make a poster of the 3 best points, highest in our high points, I guess, highest, I don't know, high points in our life and the 3 lowest points. And my coworkers and I kind of bared our souls a little bit, and a couple of us were like moved to tears. Um, and it being vulnerable in a safe space is quite okay. Uh, I wonder, maybe it might be difficult to find that kind of safe space. Maybe you and I are lucky that we're able to find people that we can do that with. Because I'm sure there are people probably listening that are just thinking, well, I can't go out and find anyone. Anyone I talk to like that will just ridicule me or use that information against me or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I was as you were saying that, I was just thinking of like, okay, like if I didn't have a coach or a therapist or a counselor to talk to,
Yeah.
what would I do? And if friends are out of the question, like if there's no ability to talk with other people about this at all, like there are a couple of things that you can do. The rubber duck comes to mind because it's like
True.
such a good exercise.
True. True. If you don't have anyone you can
Uh,
talk to, a real person, get a duck. Oh my god, man.
yeah.
Like it's a little on the sad side, but it might actually work, and it might be better than nothing.
Yeah, because
Then all you need is a
okay, so
quiet
here's the
space
thing,
where
like,
no one else will hear you, and then you're fine.
yeah, yeah, like, oh, actually, let me verify that this is actually where we're supposed to be and what we're talking about. But
Removing
I
ego.
think,
Being vulnerable,
yeah, no,
that kind of works.
yeah, yeah, removing ego, like that's okay, that's perfect, right? Because like, in order to be coached, there has to be a level of being willing to look bad, right?
Right.
And if you're gonna get coached, at some point you're gonna say something that's gonna be super incriminating, right? Like I can't count the number of times that I've been coached about like when I've been making my girlfriend wrong, or like when I have like thoughts about her being just a horrible, stupid person. Like they're not real. They're thoughts that came up. In reality, she's got a PhD. She's not dumb. But
Sure.
like,
But
do I look bad when I'm in my sessions? Fuck yeah, I do.
yeah.
But unless I'm willing to be seen in that, it's very easy to be stuck in like this perpetual cycle of like conflict of being pissed off at this person. There's no resolution unless I a little bit. So if you're willing to be coached by another human being, I feel like it's not that much of a stretch to just be like, okay, I'm gonna talk to this duck then. Like it's really not too different.
Sure. I want to bring up a pop culture reference. If you remember Castaway with Tom Hanks and Wilson, Wilson's like the ultimate rubber duck. And
Oh yeah.
he talked to, if you guys don't know, Wilson is a volleyball that he makes a face on. He's stranded on an island for 4 years, makes a volleyball, paints a face on him, and starts talking to him like he's a real person. And through the conversations, you understand that Wilson has a really hilarious personality. But it becomes this entity that he's able to talk to for advice, basically coaching advice. And it helps him leave the island. And then they say, like, if he didn't have Wilson, Tom Hanks' character would have just died. He wouldn't have made it. And all his function was Tom Hanks' mirror, like his rubber tire that he's bouncing ideas off of. And that was enough to keep Tom Hanks going and to get his ideas out when he was trying to leave the island and trying to do anything on the island. Just having something, someone, anyone to bounce ideas off and not be alone in his problems just helped.
Yeah, actually, perfect. Because there's like a real world analogy to that. There's a tool that mirrors that
Sure.
that shows up in like coaching, counseling, and therapy. Um, so it's called parts work, but essentially it's like, okay, discovering your inner child, being willing to have a conversation with that inner child,
Oh, wow.
and dialogue until you're settled on the issue and your inner child is feeling complete. So it's pretty intense. Most people end up crying like
Man.
at least once during the exercise. It takes about an hour. But
Yeah.
this entire thing, like in thinking about it, why does this work? Well, essentially, all I'm doing is I'm Jedi mind tricking someone into giving themselves their own like advice and doing it in a way that's like totally vulnerable, that totally doesn't look good, right? Like if the first time my friend tried to do this to me, like he's also a coach, it's like there's no way in fucking hell I'm talking to my inner child in front of you, like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one thing to do it in
But
the shower. It's another thing to
yeah,
do it in person with other people looking at you.
yeah, in front of a professional, yeah. And it works really well. Like generic advice that I might have gotten from my friend, like I ended up giving it to my inner child, but it actually meant something. It actually shifted something for me. Like it got me to go and talk to people that I'd cut out of my life for years and years and years. Why? Same thing as Wilson. Yeah, Wilson. Like I have someone to talk to about it. And it doesn't matter if they're real or not.
Right.
Sometimes just being able to shift outside of your own head is enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Just anything. And it goes back to what we were saying before. You can't see the forest through the trees. If you're too close to the problem, you just need any kind of other angle to make it work. And whether that's your best friend or a coach or a freaking volleyball, doesn't matter. Time-wise, we can move on to number 5. Story versus facts. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's
Uh-huh.
anything else left to cover on that base, and I think we're good. Yeah, I'm ready to move on.
Okay. Story versus fact with the beautiful picture.
Okay, so I think this is kind of the heart and soul of coaching. A lot of times as we go through life, it's really easy to just take our experience of reality as the truth. So if I walk down the street and then okay, let me just start with the story. So the story would be I was walking down the street to get like a gallon of milk or something from my grocery store, and then I heard some girls laughing at me.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of people, that's just like, oh, that's what happened to you. But if we're to really take it from like, hey, what occurred in reality, it would be I walked down the street and some people laughed, and then I made a story up about it, how they were laughing at me. And I might have added an additional story about how they were laughing at me because they thought I was some kind of joke to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a big part of being or of getting the most out of your coaching session is recognizing that sometimes what I think is real, what I think I experienced, is actually something that I just created for myself, and a lot of times it's unnecessarily punished.
Yeah.
It's go ahead.
Oh no, I was just agreeing, but I can add a little bit. I feel like my mom is
Sure.
a great example of that, where she she this might be a little mean, but she would like make mountains out of molehills, where like this little tiny thing happened, and she's like, well, that means this and this and this and this and this, and then three hours later, she's got like this huge problem that doesn't really even concern her at all. But somehow it's her issue, and she's got to take care of it, and now it's adding stress to her life, and there was one recently, to give you a case in point, where my ex and I were gonna go to Korea. She was like, "Oh wait," and so I told my mom, I was like, "Oh, we're planning to go to Korea next week." We hadn't bought tickets or anything, but it was just a plan. And my mom's first question, "Wait, North or South?" And I was like, "Of course, South." And then she was like, "Well, because South Korea and North Korea are really close to each other and all that stuff." So now she's worried about me going to Korea and all the politics and stuff. And she thinks, "Oh, you just don't know what's going on in the world." And I said, I have friends that live in Korea. They're fine. It's a safe place to travel." And then after like 2 minutes of talking, it was like the end of the conversation because there was nothing else to talk about. And I was like, "Okay, nice talking with you." But now she's concerned about my safety.
Yeah, moms are the best example of story versus fact because everything
Yeah.
is story all the time. But yeah, I mean, and that's not to like look down on moms. It's just like this is a very human thing, and
Yep.
the closer we are to the issue, the harder it is to see the forest for the trees, right? Like the reason why moms are always like going kind of nuts is because we're their kids and they're very emotionally attached. So it's really easy to make up a story about what's happening because
Yeah.
there's all that care and concern.
Exactly.
So take the case that what your mom is doing to you, and I'm talking to the listeners right now, what your mom is doing to you is something that you're doing to someone else in your life right now.
Yep. Oh man, for me personally, like romantic relationships, like if I message someone and I'm just like, "Oh man, I hope they get back to me. Oh, they're so busy," and I'll make up like this huge fabricated story why they're not responding within the 5 seconds that I wish they would. And then it's me. Oh, they don't like me. Oh, it's this. And then I find out reality. They're like, "Oh, I was in the middle of a class or something," or they just didn't have access to their phone. Which obviously some of those could be lies, but again, that's me making up a story. But sometimes it's real, and I'll make up the story anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really natural. I think we're just wired to be pattern recognition machines. So like it happens automatically. We don't even have to think about it. One thing I'll throw in here as a story is something that's actually a little bit sad. But
Sure.
it kind of points to something that you like you have an experience automatically make it all about. So to give the example, I was talking with this.
Sorry. I have to cut you out
And
here. You're cutting
go ahead.
out. Start again. It's something that is very sad, but it hits the point home. Go.
Yeah, sure.
Go from there. It was cutting
It's
out. That's all.
it's like a yeah, no worries, man. Is it better now?
Yeah, you should be okay.
Okay. So I think the the big overarching message here is that it's really easy for us to make up stories about things. Okay, so if something happens in my environment, it's really easy for me to make up a story about how I caused that to occur.
Sure.
So it comes up for me and this is the part that was a little bit sad was I was talking to this woman, and she was mentioning like one of the things that she wanted to have her breakthrough in was just like she was in constant pain, like, and she was like, okay, so we went a little bit deep. What's the pain about? And it turns out she'd been shot in the leg.
Dang.
It's like, okay, well, like, and she's like, I don't see how you could possibly get me a breakthrough in that.
Yeah. Right.
Going deeper into the conversation, what emerged, I think, at like a fast food chain, came in,
Sorry.
like two or three men, and
What happened? Emerged. She was working at a fast food chain. A couple men came in.
yeah.
Okay, keep going from there. It was glitchy a little bit.
Okay.
Yep.
Weird. Was it clearer like a few minutes ago?
Yeah, it's breaking up a little bit, but it should be audibly clear enough.
Okay. Let me try moving a little bit. But yeah, so she was working at a fast food chain, and like two armed men broke in. Like they came in, one of them had a shotgun, and
Yes.
they were like, okay, like empty the registers. So
Yeah.
she emptied the registers. There was like $24 in them. And so they were like, okay, no, like take us to the back. Is there a safe? Like take us to the. So she went to the safe, She opened it up, didn't put up a fight because that's part of like the employee training. Don't
Mm-hmm.
be a hero. And I guess there wasn't enough money in the safe either. So they had her like put her arms up against the wall and they shot her in the leg. And part of the reason why, like part of the pain that she carried around was like the emotional. It was like, okay, well, I can understand that. You got shot in the leg. I'd be resentful about that. And she was like, no, no, no. The reason why this has bothered me for so long is because I could have done more to protect the other people who were working at that restaurant.
Oh.
And it was like, what? And she was like, yeah, you know, like, but like she was the one who got shot. And at the
Dang.
end of the day, her story was, I didn't do enough to protect those other people.
They didn't get shot or anything?
So no, she was the one who got the worst injury out of it. And
Wow.
like, so you gotta get like how automated and insane that part of our brain. Like, here's a perfectly healthy, functioning human adult, and she gets shot, and her brain is telling her that it's her fault that she didn't protect others. And we are doing stuff like this constantly. It's maybe not as extreme, but like you really want to get that, like, when something happens, our brain's natural reaction is to make it about us. Like when the example that you gave earlier, I messaged someone, they didn't respond. My reaction is like, oh shit, did I say something weird? Did I make it
Yeah.
awkward for this person? Like, what the fuck did I do? And like,
Yeah.
why are they ignoring me? And it's all about me. So yeah, I think that's basically it. Like, it's just really easy to create stories out of nothing, and unraveling those stories is part of the healing process. Once we can get to the facts of what actually happened, then there's nothing to be resentful about. Then there's nothing to hold on to, and the pain can go away.
Yeah, wow. Wow, I can't believe that, where she put it all in her head and she said, oh man, it was my fault when she was doing the best she could. And she still suffered from it.
Yeah. Yeah, and like,
Man,
it-
great example. though.
I think the default would be to give advice like, hey, no, you didn't cause those people to show up and try to rob your store, but that doesn't make the difference. She has to discover it for herself, otherwise she'll never see.
Yeah, right. Otherwise, she'll always resent, always say, what else could I have done? And always live in that moment and never be able to really move on from that. Man.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the last one. We got the secret sauce action. What can we do to make sure we're getting the most out of our coaching sessions?
Yeah. So I think I want to rewind a little bit and say that like
Okay, sure.
she had her breakthrough and she's doing fine now. Like
Oh, good.
her leg is still in pain, but she doesn't beat herself up over that anymore. Like she's clear with that. It's just so that like people aren't left wondering if she was still in emotional turmoil now.
Yeah, that's good.
Awesome. Cool. So secret sauce.
Secret sauce. This one's gonna be at least you starting, because
Yeah.
I don't know where we're going with this one really. So
Okay, wait. Have I used the cactus analogy yet?
Cactus.
Last time we talked, did we have that discussion?
I don't think you did.
Okay.
If so, it'll be good review.
Okay, cool. Okay. All right, cool. I'm done. So I think the way that a lot of us take on like conversations with friends, so like if I'm really angry because someone cut me off in traffic, I'll call up my friend and be like, oh, like this dude just like cut in front of me and braked out of nowhere. What the fuck? And I'll vent to them and I'll feel a little bit better, right? Or when I go to a coach or a therapist, I'll vent to them and they'll walk me through and I'll feel a little bit better. But
Sure.
I think where most of us fail, or fail's the wrong word, but where most of us kind of like don't get the most bang for our buck is that at the end of the day, I'm not actually taking any action to make sure that I don't have that same reaction again.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like the analogy that I use a lot is that like I say I have a cactus right by the front door, and every day I walk by and I have to scoot around the door and like it just like nabs me in the leg.
You try to avoid it,
So
but
I go to the
doesn't help
Yeah,
and
I can't.
still stabs you.
Yeah, I've got like a coffee in one hand, like a notebook in the other, and just shit that I have to balance, and like, it right in the leg. So I go to the doctor, I get the needles removed, and he's like, "Okay, well, here's a bandage and some painkillers." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks, doc. I feel a lot better. Well,
Don't
that's
get poked
great." And I
again.
walk back into my door, and bam, like cactus, like, and where the the thing is, I haven't done anything to move the cactus. So I
Right.
might go to the doctor again. I get it bandaged up, but like people are doing this all the time when it comes to coaching. Just getting to the emotional clearing of seeing the insight is
Uh-huh.
great. It feels awesome. Like having that transformation and being able to see the world with new eyes, amazing. But if I don't do anything about it, I'm going to keep on bumping into that cactus. It's still going to bother me. Just having the knowledge isn't enough. Taking actions consistent with that knowledge is where the transformation.
But as a coach, I can't say, just move the freaking cactus.
Can't. You have to ask questions.
To get the person to say, oh, well, maybe if I just move the cactus, that would help. And you
Yeah.
say,
Like-
that's a good idea.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's really clear. Like it's really tempting to be like, yeah, just move it. Like you're not. But it doesn't do anyone any good. It's like the teach a man to fish versus giving him a fish.
Yeah.
One of them will make a difference. One of them is just a temporary fix.
Man.
So yeah. What's a good example of this?
It reminds me of a YouTube video I
Okay.
saw where a girl was telling her boyfriend about her problems, and she's like, "Oh, I have this giant headache, and there's a giant nail sticking out of her forehead." She's like, "I have this giant headache, and it just won't go away. It's like right here," and she like points right at where the nail is going into her forehead. And the guy is just like, you could just remove the nail, right? She's like, "You're not listening to me. I want you to listen to my." And so it's talking about how giving advice versus just being there to listen to the person. And it's so easy to say, just remove the nail, just remove the cactus. That would solve all your problems. But as a coachee, as a coach, you can't use that exchange, because you need her to realize you need the cactus pokey to realize what the problem is and how to fix it themselves.
Yeah. And
Go ahead,
even
Whitney.
even beyond just realizing, but to then move the cactus, like following up and making sure that they do the act is everything.
Yeah. Then
like
it's
this-
like, well,
the
how did that work
example-
out for you? What's going on? How has your life changed? If you notice a difference, okay, and if so, great. Let's move on. What else do you need work with? Or if not, what else can you do to solve that problem? What is another approach you can take?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep cutting you off for your example. Go ahead.
No, that's cool. I realize I talk like largely in abstraction, so I try to make sure I do at least one example so it's
That's cool.
clear.
Yeah.
So the example that comes to mind is a client that I'm working with who she's like a big successful realtor now. I think she makes easily like $200,000 to $300,000 in like one real estate season. Like she's kind of a baller, but she had a kid when she was in her teens. So like remarkable human being, right? Like she got left by her boyfriend. He was like physically abusive, like really rough history. Had a kid when she was a teen, still managed to be very successful and start a family and get married.
Wow.
But she still has to like negotiate custody and stuff with her ex-boyfriend, like the person that she had a kid with. So every single time that we have a coaching session, it's about the same thing, right? Like I talked with so and so, and he just makes me so angry, and I feel like he's always trying to manipulate me. And we'll get to the insight, and the insight will be like, oh, whenever I feel like he's trying to manipulate me, and it could be as simple as asking a question, I hang up the phone on him.
Wow.
I cut him out of my life, right? Like, and it's just like she'll see it and be like, oh, I feel bad about that. It's like, okay, well, the next step would be talk to him about it and let him know. Like, don't make yourself wrong. Don't be guilty about it. we need to get this cleared up. Have that conversation so that like he sees that you're trying to change, so that he has the room to change. The thing about this process is that, like, unless she begins to clear the space with him, the two of them are going to be constantly in conflict, right? It's like if I get into a fight with my girlfriend and I don't make things right with her,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get into infinite fights with her down the road.
Right,
Same thing
exactly.
going on here. And she's just, and I don't blame her, right? But she's refused to take action on this. So, like, she continues to bump into the cactus over and over and over again. And that's where people most resist. It is taking the action that they would find really uncomfortable because they're not used to it. But
Mm-hmm.
it stunts their growth, it stunts their progress.
Wow, good example, man.
Thanks, dude.
Mm.
Yeah, I have to find a way to finagle this or ask enough questions so that she sees that it's like impactful enough to make a move. But yeah, it's frustrating because the one thing that I want for her to be free and to have a relationship that isn't like stressing her out every
Right.
single time that she has to call with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's it. Like, that's the secret sauce, like making sure that you're in motion, because without it, there's no room to shift, there's no room for transformation.
Right. Yeah. If you got to get out of your own way.
100%.
And we've talked about that before, where 90% of the problem is your own response of the situation. And if you do a different response, maybe you'll get a better result, a different result that will be better. The definition of insanity, right, is doing the same thing and expecting the same result. So you got to try a different angle. You got to try a different approach. You got to see it through someone else's eyes to really get the breakthrough that you want.
Yeah, I think hmm, I think that it's understandable that there's a lot of fear around that,
Oh, for sure.
because it's yeah, eh,
Yeah. It puts
a
you in a
lot of times
situation
it's
that's
like
uncomfortable,
actions.
and no one likes that.
Oh yeah, like the most uncomfortable thing that you could think of in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But it's kind of just like that. What we resist persists. And like to point to something that we were discussing earlier, it's let me see if I can come up with an example. It's okay, yeah, so for I noticed that when I'm like talking with my dad, I don't really open up. Like, I kind of just
Mm.
sit there and listen to him, and I nod, and I don't really have conversations with him. And and one of these, like, I looked at my life and I realized that I just didn't have a relationship with my dad at all. And it kind of sucked because, like, he was he single-handedly supported my entire family. Like, he was an immigrant. He moved over, like, even before, didn't really speak too much English, founded his own company, was really successful with it. And like, who he is like a miraculous. But like, I when we converse, it's hmm, like I would give him like one word answers, like. And so I kind of got that,
Mm.
like, he didn't have a relationship with his son at all. That's the reason why he did all of that. But it took me like going back and seeing, like, oh shit, there was one time when I was in the backyard as a kid, and I was just like breaking all the bricks on like the retaining wall. I was just like running around with a hammer, just smashing shit. And he got mad at me, understandably. But
Sure.
in that moment, I kind of created this story where, like, hey, no, my dad doesn't like me, and I can't trust him
Oh.
because, like, he got mad at me. So it took me going back and letting him know, like tail between my legs, right? Like, shit,
Yeah.
I've had this story about you this entire time for like almost 30 years of my life. But now we're great. You know, like we give hugs. Like I say I love you to him, and he says I love you back, and he looks at the floor when he says it because he's not comfortable expressing his emotions.
Aw.
But it's like, you know, it's like an actual relationship. But
Right. Yeah, that's cool.
it took like one of the most uncomfortable conversations ever.
Yeah. Wow. And to end on a high note, we can stop there. We've hit we're quite past the hour, so we can start there and stay tuned for more for next week. And thanks for watching. Anything else you want to say before we go?
Yeah, thanks for listening, and leave us comments. Let us know what you'd like to hear for the next episode, or you know, yeah, let us know how we did.
Yeah. Cool.
Right. Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. See you guys next time.